Hey guys, welcome to this webinar where it's really focused on how to grow your brand, how to sell to distributors, and how to grow your penetration with the distributors. So this is the first webinar of this series, on where I lay out the foundation and some basic principles, and then the webinar 2 will come out soon as well. I also wanted to speak about USA wine ratings and how this competition is really positioned to help you grow your presence in the off-trade channels of the USA. This is where independent store owners, the bottle shops, the liquor stores, the main street stores, the big chains, the national supermarkets, the regional supermarkets really evaluate your products. So these are the trade buyers, and along with the master of wines who will be evaluating your products. So, if you're looking to position your brand, especially, your wine brand, enter into USAWineRatings.com. And if you're looking to position your spirits for the off-trade, we have USASpiritsRatings.com and likewise USABeerRatings.com. So go and check it out. These are more than the competitions. This is really where you want to position your brand, penetrate it, get in front of the trade buyers, and really use it when you're knocking doors to those accounts. So once again, check out USAWineRatings.com, USASpiritsRatings.com, and USABeerRatings.com. Have a look at the judges, and you will just love the feedback that you'll be getting from these individuals.
When you're making your pitches, when you're actually talking with them over a meeting or a dinner or a Zoom call, you are at the same time selling them always that you are an educated supplier, you understand their business, you are selling them time, how you're going to help them save time by creating their point of sale, managing shipping for them. That's all time saving. And you're selling them the profit story, right? How you are going to hand them the profit. So great stuff, guys. Thank you for joining me here. Good morning, wherever you are joining from. Appreciate you coming in. This is a call where, really it will help you plan your 2025. And my goal here is to prepare you very well, so that you can have more closings done at your importers and distributors level, especially when you're trying to grow your distribution in 2025. So with that, I'll kickstart the presentation. All right, so just a little bit about me here. Just so you all know, I'm also a brand owner. That's my other side of the business. So we have Beverage Trade Network, which is really a media company which owns a lot of competitions, which owns, and does trade shows. We have media assets. But apart from all this, how I started was really, as a brand owner. So I've built brands. I was a wholesaler as well in, the state of Delaware. So I ran a wholesale business. My family owns some liquor stores as well in the East Coast. So I really understand all sort of tiers of our business. And that gives me the sort of a practical side, on executing and sort of sales and distribution on how you grow your brand on the street and what really it takes. So, this is really a talk for phase 1 or phase 2 brands where, you're trying to open up. You're not yet like in Walmarts of the world. You're trying to grow your distribution. You are just in your first sort of 5 years or 10 years of business, or maybe you are just finally now decided to export or expand your distribution. I also have recently I'm working on a new project called Coca. So that is my gin brand. I'm promoting happiness. It means it's named behind the world's happiest animal. And we're trying to play different strategies to, try and create some direct to consumer models here. So everything, as I said, comes from practical experience of brand building. Give you a little umbrella of this webinar series. The webinar is, this particular webinar is the webinar 1, laying the foundation. The next webinar that I'll be doing in continuation for this series is on January 10th, and the third one will be on January 20th. So this would be a 3-part webinar series where I'll be sending you the recorded videos as well. All of you, can enter again an RSVP for the following series. So it's a continuation, and you don't have to RSVP again, but I'll still send you. We already have your RSVP here, so we'll send you the details of the next webinar, so you can just simply join with the Zoom link. So let's go in the first webinar. So let's break this in 3 different topics that we will cover: creating a distribution brand, ready checklist, brand assets, marketing materials, and preparation. So this is what I call, preparing properly. This is very important. So you need to really have a nice deck. You need to have a nice process, and we'll go into that detail. The second topic that we have here is the pitch, actual pitch. So this is where you really are focusing on the conversion, on that meeting itself, on what you are planning to It's pretty much from elevator pitch to a face-to-face meeting to the whole journey, right? From samples, the first inquiry till the last purchase order. So that's where we'll go in detail as well. The third thing is, storytelling. So I'll give you some pointers. So again, write it as a note and just reflect that is your story consistent at all platforms, in all kind of trade channels, in all communications, and is it a different story? Is it compelling story? What is your story and whatnot? So we'll just break that down as well. And is it really contextual for 2025? You got to understand that point as well. Are you relevant for the new way we look at things? Let's go on the first topic here, which is creating a distribution brand ready checklist. In that, I'll break this into planning. So first is your route to market. What is your strategy? So let's call this more of a route to market plan. So my advice is always go with penetration focus first. That means wherever you are, penetrate that market first. So before you aim at opening a new market, ask that honest question that have I created a sell-through business? Have I created a nice repeat order business? Have I created a reputation that my brand sells? Right? Those are the real questions, because you will end up wasting a lot of money in trying to open new markets, trying to sell the first order, and then again nothing is going to create attraction. So until and unless you are not faced with the real challenge of depletions, sell-throughs, repeat order rates, it's no point you think about, it's just no brainer. Like, do not sort of market the empty bucket, right? You first try to prove within your local markets, within the current accounts, that your brand moves, because that confidence and that execution experience will really help you to open faster and work with new partners, because you'll be super educated and you will have a case study that your brands work. Second would be old markets and new products. What I mean by that is, let's say you have a new vintage or a new line extension of a flavor or a profile or an SKU size. It's always a good idea to first go in that route. So try to expand new SKUs for your growth or new varietals for the same customer. That is also one way to grow your business. Try to what I call it, like an average billing cycle with a distributor or an average billing cycle with a retailer. An amount you can measure, time you can measure, how frequently they are ordering, and how your invoice size is going on each account. So that's the strategy you can use as well. The third I would advise is, go to the new market and take your entire portfolio there. So let's say if you are in New York, New Jersey, now obviously the nearby states make more sense compared to the West Coast, right? So you want to first penetrate well on the East Coast, and then maybe decide that, okay, now I'm going West Coast. I'm just giving US as an example here, but it's a similar philosophy we can use. Like if you're doing Europe, you first concentrate on the countries that are nearby, and then you expand slowly from there on. And then once you are done with that cluster, you take another sort of cluster and you go with the anchor one. So for example, if I'm doing West Coast, for sure, I'll go Los Angeles and San Francisco first. And if I'm doing Houston, sort of Texas, and then I go nearby, right? So you pick the anchor city, anchor state, you really build a case there, and then you expand. And that's how you should plan your route to the market. The fourth one is completely international and exports, right? Where, okay, you're done, you think you're good, you have the capability, you have the money, you have the product, everything is there in excess. Now you're ready for international markets or completely new territories. Now I'm going to talk on the sales process. Like, do you really have a disciplined sales process here, right? So this means that do you have a way you think your business as a sales machine? So I understand that we are in an art business, like we are making beautiful wines and spirits, and we all love that. But especially when you're actually out there selling, please wear your sales hat, wear a business hat, imagine that you are, working in a big company like Gallo or Coca-Cola or, Bacardi, like how their conversations are in the room. It's really the sales board, it's the metrics, it's the presentations, it's the lingo that they use in chain accounts and everything, right? So I need you to understand that you need to really understand that lingo if you have the aspiration for going mainstream distribution. Do not try to mix it. Like, respect the art, but at the same time respect the sales rep. Understand the retailer's objection. Understand, if they are saying that it's too expensive, take everything very seriously, because that is the real market. Like, do not disrespect the distributor. We all say that we have to do all the work these days. Yes, I mean, unfortunately, it's a supply demand issue, right? So we have to do all the work because distributors have enough options. And don't forget, they are also in the same boat. Like, retailers squeeze the hell out of them. They pay them late. It's a tough business. So everyone's in the same boat, and if a retailer has a slow day, no supplier is going there and helping them, right? So we all have our own businesses to focus on. So please be empathetic when it comes to understanding that. I'll come back to this. What I mean here is preparation. So that means all the folders in your computer or your sales team or your export managers, are they really well equipped with everything? Second is prospecting funnel. What is your sales funnel? Do you have a target? If you are a CEO or a leader of your company, are you telling your in-house team that I need 6 samples a week to go out to prospective people? And I'm talking about distributors here. Let's say 6 is a very ambitious number, but let's say we're talking about a monthly number, then I need to have 10 samples going out to 10 prospective, importers and distributors. So that's my scorecard. That's my benchmark. Now, what do I do to get that 10 samples out? So obviously I need to speak with 40 people properly, to for them to convince, and then I qualify them, and then the 10 people will say, okay, send me samples, and so on. If you have 10 samples tasted, I'm trying to force my sales rep in telling them that this 10 distributors tasted my samples, I need 2 closures out of it. Like 20% should be buying our brand, right? So you are fine tuning your entire process by having the simple metrics, which is samples sent, deals closed, and initial introductions. Just break it down into 3 things, number of every week or every month new introductions you're having, number of samples going out as a prospect, to the prospect, and then deals closed. So that is something which you really can instill in your reporting as well. That is an actual important scorecard than anything else to run your machine. Then comes the launch. Then are you prepared? Let's say if a distributor says, yes, we'll start. So what is your process for onboarding them? There is a process to really get the distributor started, from, your agreements to purchase orders to kickoff meeting to the market work. So you need to have that focus and have a launch SOP, which means standard operating procedure. This is how you launch a brand. You've seen it. Like, you go to the distributor's room, this is what you do. You tell them, you work with them on the first Monday. You are you're riding with every rep that week. So you try to motivate. So that's your launch sort of week. And your goal here is as well monetary. You have to put a scorecard. My launch goal was, am I walking out with a repeat pallet order? Have I sold 70% of what my distributor bought from me? So have an output measurement to each of your processes, and then the repeat purchase order, right? So when am I going to expect my second order, and why is it not coming? And if it's coming, how am I sort of going for the third order? So I'm a big believer of all this. See that the business that we are in is beyond 1,000 cases per distributor. So till that time, you really, really, really have to create a demand and a pull and sort of work with that distributor. I'll just read it out. Importers and distributors like to deal with educated and prepared suppliers. You are selling them time, profit, and convenience also. Okay. So please remember this, that when you're making your pitches, when you're making an approach, when you're actually talking with them over a meeting or a dinner or a Zoom call, you are at the same time selling them always that, you are an educated supplier, you understand their business, you are selling them time, how you're going to help them, save time by creating their point of sale to managing shipping for them. That's all time saving. And you're selling them the profit story, right? How you are going to hand them the profit in their plate sometimes, right? Like a chain access or giving them some pre-sale orders or market work and so on. And convenience is, we'll come to that. Convenience is like your pickup location, your flexibility of mix and match orders, your terms, all that is convenience. So you're also selling them that. A quick checklist. I won't read everything, but I'll send you this presentation so you have it. But as you can see here, these are some real honest things that you have to answer yourself. It is what it is, guys. So as I said, like, we have to do the work here. We have to sort of handhold the distributor and build the brand, and to answer how the main question of like, how are we going to do all this? My answer to that is add 15% more in the margins. Really, no one, the consumer is going to pay $1 more at the retail and everyone is happy, but you got to keep the margins to execute and help all these activities to develop your brand. So am I willing to support the distributor? Have I identified my brand? All these questions are something that I would encourage you should write and then have an answer in especially if you're in export manager or handling sales and distribution. So for example, a question here, how do I get floor displays? So what is your strategy to get a 3-case display? What is your strategy to get a 25-case tag? Do you even understand those kind of things? What is your strategy for a secondary placement? What is your strategy to get a national account? Because it's going to help you get more distributors. What is your strategy to sort of, have a FAQ document for objections from retailers to empower your sales team, right? All those things are here. So you can go through this when I send you the deck. Materials, have you got all the materials ready? This is an investment. This is the cost you got to understand that I always added like $2 sort of a case for all this in my pricing, right? So if my case was $48, then it should be 50 because if I am supplying all this point of sale, shelf stockers, everything, which I encourage you to supply. Like a lot of people just send artwork and expect the distributors to sort of make all this. Like except Budweiser's of the world or Southern and Glazers, no distributors would have an in-house capability or resources to manage all this. And they're not going to FedEx or Kinko's or all that stuff to print your point of sale. So, I would encourage, especially in the context of this call, like I'm hoping that most of you are dealing with the small and medium-sized distributors or would end up dealing there, would want to send them a finished carton of the point of sale, with their sales rep with the purchase order. You can wrap it up with the first order, but it's very important that you add all these things there. And it is also important, this is where we miss. It is also important to have equally in your presentations all this visualized merchandise. So they want to see how your case cards look when it's a 3-case tag, a 25-case tag. They want to see how on the retail a shelf talker looks. Show them a branded case tag. Show them sort of authorized chain access, right? So show them all this as a part of your presentation. Know-how. So the market know-how is, do you know these things about the market that you're trying to go? Now, if someone tells me that I want to expand into, let's say, US market for an international brand, do you really understand like how competitive that is? And everything is competitive. So what that means is, we're just not ending the conversation there, which means what I mean by that is if I'm selling Jacob's Creek Shiraz, in Delaware State, do I know what Yellowtail's deals are? Because that's my direct competitor, So if I'm selling Josh Sellers, let's say, do I know my exact 5 next competitor at that level, what marketing deals are going on, what is their pitch to the retail and all that stuff. So you have to be educated into this. You need to know your best top 3 competitor sort of deals, not for just like taking their market share or something. It's really to learn. Like you will just learn a lot. In my case, I just sort of learned what Yellowtail was doing, what Jacob's Creek was doing, what Little Penguin was doing. At that time, Australian wine was my main. Let's say if I had an Argentinian Malbec, then I'm going to focus on the market leaders of Argentinian Malbec at that $12 range. And I'm going to just learn about everything, that what deals are being offered to the distributor, what deal Total Wine is buying from. I should know everything about the category leaders, because that will give you the reality check, which is like, you'll be amazed to know, we all think that, let's say, people don't make much money on the big brands like Budweiser or Miller or even Grey Goose or something. You'll be amazed to see that even the big brands need to give margins to the distributors and retailers. So you're really competing, at 30%, even they are playing. So imagine, how competitive this can be. Like if a Bacardi is offering 30%, who are we to sort of ask the retailer to work on 30%, right? So you got to understand all these things. Are you facing a tailwind or a headwind? Meaning, is your category in demand or it is not in demand? And if it's not in demand, what are you going to do, for example, right? So there are things that you can do to sort of make sure that you will have to push a lot, so that means you'll have to have some extra room, extra efforts, maybe low margins that year and so on. So you need to understand the market really well. So this is all, I call this under, the preparation. And when you are really educated and you're well prepared with tools, it will be fun to go out and approach distributors. The next one is the pitch. Before that, I also want to give some tips to our brands here in what do you look for in the distributor. So my second slide will be what distributors look into you, but this one is really how do you find a potential partner, or how do you screen a distributor or an importer. So here are some pointers you can go through. You can look at, they all know, I mean, I'm assuming some of you already understand this. So you should see the gap. That's the best place, right? So if you're selling, let's say $40 bourbon, particular style, and if they just don't have that, you sort of capitalize on filling the gap pitch. If you are a premium category, you just got to figure out that is there a gap proposition that you're bringing to the table? That's super important. The second things that you got to understand that, if it's a huge distributor, if you're selling in OPG or Johnson Brothers, or let's say Fedway, New Jersey, or Southern Glazers and those kind of guys, they have thousands and thousands of brands. The realistic exposure that your brand will get is maybe, if you're lucky, 1 week. That's it. I can assure you that the sales rep of any large distributor is not going to take your brand again. 100% I can assure you. So the only place that they will take is if a retailer again says that, hey, I think your brand is moving well, so they're done. They have something else, to take next Monday. So unless and until you are playing on the luck game, the big distributor orders, that's why you see that, it's very hard for big distributors to sort of give you the second order, because it's just they tried and they're not going to keep pushing your brand because they have every week some other focuses going on. So I would advise to really ask the distributor that how many focus week am I getting? Are you going to take my brand in the market like 2 times a year, 4 times a year, or just 1 time a year? So let's be honest here, those kind of things. A couple of simple ways to audit the distributor. So I used to do Google Earth. I used to see that if they have a physical actual warehouse, because a lot of people would have an LLC or something like that, and really very easy to start an import business. And then I would discover that, oh wow, it's a home run sort of registered business, and they all use third-party logistics and very small shop. They have commission-based sales reps. So that's a no for me, because the distributor or importer is not really solidly invested in this, and I lost a lot of money as well. So I would advise people to at least go with this basic simple checks, where do they have their own, even one truck or a couple of trucks? Do they have 4 to 5 sales reps on the payroll? Do they have like at least 10 brands they work with, not just one family-owned winery, because that's like a family or a partnership or some friend here and there, right? But you need to see these things. And then the best way you can reference check is ask the supplier that how are they on the payments, right? So some simple things before you send the samples. Let me play this.
What's your market? Who are your competitors? What are your costs? Now, you don't have to repeat that to everybody, but you should know them really so down that you know where the fat is in your cost. You know where you can give up and where you can't give up. Because let me tell you something, when you start hitting certain distributors in the United States, they will know where the fat is, and they will try to suck that fat up as fast as possible. So you better know it before they do, because they know it really well, because they see at least 400 people like yourselves every month. They know you better than you know you. And once you start talking about price at shelf, and they start doing retroactive pricing constructs in front of you, they will know immediately how much it costs you for you to produce, because they know all the shipping. The presentation that we just heard, which was marvelous, they know by heart. So your pricing, how does it fit? Your distinction, why do you deserve to exist? This is a big, big question. Not enough people ask themselves. What service to the wine drinking public or the liquor drinking public are you providing? And who is your audience? Why they'll love you? What's the passion and the funding and the people that you have on your side? What are your strengths? Once you get to know all of these things, and each one can have a story attached to it.
So this was one of our conferences, and this is really coming out from the horse's mouth. So this is distributor himself really telling the suppliers, right? Like how do you prepare an effective pitch? So I'll go there, and I have a couple more testimonials or videos as well for other people's view there. Let's say your pitch, when I used to pitch, my prospective distributors, and even if for my current gin, if I'm talking to a potential distributor, my pitch is really like, I get blown away if someone says no, because it's so perfect. Like, I've identified my distributor. I exactly know how I'm going to add value to them. I'm betting on myself that I am the guy who's going to make them money. I'm going to show them an execution. I'm going to give them the orders. So it's like, wow, how can you just say no? So my pitch is so like convincing to them that it's like more of they are going to miss out by working with me, right? So that's how I would look when you are doing your meeting. It should be a perfect partnership. It should be a perfect pitch, and it should look like, wow, I think I just got the supplier that's going to make a good partnership. Let's go on what they look in you. Super important. So try to incorporate all these things in your presentation or in your meeting. You don't have to include in a deck, but that's some things you say as well. So first is after you're done with your brand stories and everything, comes this kind of decks, profit story. So how are you going to help them make money? Meaning, it can be in the form of showing them that you will give them 10 retail accounts a year for sure with your market work or your expertise or your office working behind the scene. What is the value case? Why their customers will buy product from them, right? So you got to go one step further that, hey, this is how you can sell my product to your bars and restaurants and retail. And this is why I think, they'll carry this brand. Then you got to sell them the convenience, like the pickup location, which we spoke about, minimum order. What can you afford? Let's say go minimum. I think mix and match, flexibility, logistics, who's paying. So I preferred suppliers who paid the freight, because that saves me a headache of managing another load or managing another invoice, right? So if you gave me a price FOB, my warehouse in Delaware, it was much easier instead of Napa. And then I just have to worry about like finding a truck and all that stuff. So, you give them convenience. They're happy to pay that $4 more. It's just that they prefer you handling the nitty-gritty of shipping. Samples policy, marketing policy, pickup location, all this kind of things you got to discuss with them. Pallet configuration, in-market visits, completely add like $5 a case or $6 a case marketing support. Allow them however they want to use it. You can ask them some reports like depletion reports or how they use the money. That's fine, but at least don't sort of micromanage, because every business is different. Every distribution house has their own ways to motivate the team or get sales on your products. Market commitment, all those things. Ultimately, what you're trying to do here is you have to be a likable supplier. You have to be a likable business partner, and you have to show them with the presentation that they can bet on you as a supplier, as a human as well. So let's hear, this is some big, if some of you may know, like on the left is Constellation, this is Palm Bay, and on the right is Winebow. So this here from Winebow.
Varies based on what it is that they're presenting. If they're presenting an established wine in the market already, which does happen, then it's based on the facts, right? How is that wine already selling? Is it on premise? Has it been placed? Is it in the retail channel? What kind of volume does it have? You can't hide from those numbers, really. If it does not, and that's really where it gets a little bit more difficult, we're looking at things like press. The competitive position of the wine. Is it in a segment that is a growing segment? Is it in a segment that's extremely crowded right now? How is that wine priced? Is the wine priced effectively in the market? And what are the various things that you can do to change those factors if they're not going in the direction that you'd like them to go into right now?
Over there, he stated a couple of points that you noticed. One is, if you're already selling in the market, let's say I'm sure we all are having a distribution somewhere. So if you're selling in a couple of states, they're going to focus more on show me the numbers on how it's doing. So that's where you go when you're presenting someone. You also have to show a case study. You have to show that, hey, your neighbor's really selling this well, and now I'm looking for a partnership here, right? And that is more convincing than you talking about your brand. Because you're just showing someone the data, the proven data, that this is my depletion rate, this is how we're doing, this is the year 1, year 2, year 3 growth story on that state or country. that is what you should really focus on and explain them as well. And maybe a little bit on how you did it, like add some major 5 or 6 marketing plays that you did on helping the partner, right? So you can add that as well. Let's go on the last bit, storytelling. This is sort of where the rubber meets the road, meaning like how you are communicating your story. And I will break this down into 3 things. One is your personal story. So always maybe you can start and have a little bit of who are you sort of thing in your story, and you should be very consistent with that in your marketing, in your websites, in every time I've seen some really good story makers, like they're so consistent every time, from the sales rep till the CEO, they're all just talking exactly that foundational story. Then comes the brand story, which is apart, once you move in from yourself, you can just say what is this brand about, right? Why did you create? Who are the consumers for this, and so on. And then comes the third part, which is the profit story. This is, as it sounds, it is very clear that how are you and your brand, the number 1 and number 2 things, which is there, is going to make the third story. Like how will this equate into profits for the retailers, for the bartenders, for the sommeliers, for the distributors, for the importers, for everyone who is going to take this, in the supply chain. This is from Jason Stephens. I'm sure you may have heard of Josh Sellers, one of the fastest growing, amazing execution, from the guys who did Yellowtail as well. So hear what their training manager of sales rep have to say.
I'm sure they
Josh
put a
is
lot
now,
of
yeah.
Josh, and same thing. So they can make brands. That's where we're going at, right? It's the salespeople that make brands. Let's go on a couple of things that you said, Jason, which is selling the profit story to your customer. So I love that. So let's elaborate on how to do it and what do you mean by that?
Oh, fantastic. I think so many suppliers, when they work towards introducing a new product to a distributor or getting out in the market, it's all about the selling story, it's all about the brand, but we forget to tell the profit story. Ultimately, the buyers that we are working with, the accounts that are selling our products, we want to make sure that they have a solid understanding of how to tell the profit story, not only how that affects the distributor that they're selling our products, but the customer that's going to be displaying our products. So it's important for suppliers to have a solid understanding of business math. They need to understand margin, markup. They need to be able to look at an item on a shelf and identify what the target margin that account, whether it's on-premise, off-premise, or corporate chain, is using. And then from there, we can actually apply that to our product and talk about the profit story based on the deal.
Understood.
So if we're talking about, let's say, 35 points of margin, we want to be able to extrapolate that out to what that profit means, not only on the bottle sale, the case sale, but the 5 and 10 case sale. So telling the profit story, each and every sales presentation that a distributor salesperson makes should include a profit story. What is their return on investment? So business math is a big part of success.
This is, how professionally, these big brands are made. Like Josh Sellers is a great example of real execution through the street and marketing, right? So, and this is the Jason is the guy who trains all the distributors rep. So it's a good thing to hear his take as well. Let's go on the storytelling again. Personal core identity, right? Like your brand stories. I have some pointers here, so I'll just read it out again. What inspired you to create this brand? What are your traditions, philosophies, processes? How do you want customers to feel when they engage with your products? And I would double down on this in the marketing. So it's the feeling that you have to show more. Like, it's the moments you have to show more in your visuals, in your imaginations, in your social media, in your presentations. It is that emotion has to be driven from your presentations, basically. Origin story, who are the people, what challenges did you overcome, geographical location that influenced your product. So all this you can add in origin story. And I'll give you one example of an amazing winemaker that we just chatted almost about 3-4 months ago. So they won USA Wine Ratings Wine of the Year. Like, this is a very super small winery that won Wine of the Year in our USA Wine Ratings, which is a big competition where almost 2,000 sort of products come, and they won Wine of the Year, right? So, but I put it in the slide because I love the way he was telling story when we had a brand pitch call to all our sort of buyers, which we give to the top winners. So here's what the level of the way, a great example of a storytelling.
And I'm going to start with a photo. And I have a few photos, and I'll narrate as we go through, so you guys can kind of follow along.
Sorry, just 1 second on here. So he himself is a winemaker, okay? A winemaker and the owner telling the story. It's not a sales rep or something. He himself came when the retailers were there in this call in listening from the top winners.
This was probably around 2020 during the pandemic. I was moving wine right before harvest to make room at the winery. So this was going to a warehouse for storage and distribution down closer to San Francisco. And this is me at a gas station. I was the truck driver at the time. As you guys probably are aware, labor was very challenging. Notice all the straps. We take very good care of our wine. And these wines are all single vineyard wines, or in some cases, in this case, there's some single barrel wines, which was a very experimental sort of project that I did to explore the subtle variations of Pinot Noir clones and cooperage and how they interact. So they were like 20 case lots, very, very small stuff, and experimental. They were going for sort of a longer term storage because many of our premium wines, and honestly, all of our wines are made to last. As you notice in the contest, my 2017 received a gold medal, and that's a Pinot. So there's enduring quality there. And then this happened. So as we were, I was going to the lab to drop some samples. As I said, it was right before harvest. So we were checking wine. And even though we had strapped extremely well, as you can see from the first photo, it didn't go well. So the wine fell off the truck, and that was a big mess. And, that was very stressful, upsetting, disheartening for me as the winemaker who had, dedicated my soul and my life to making these. So what did I do? Obviously, I took a picture because I knew one day I would use it for promotion, and here we are. And then, I got to work. I sorted through the mess. I got rid of the trash, and most of the wines were still in solid condition, at least inside the bottle. And so what I decided to do with that wine was, finish cleaning it up. And then, here it is loaded back on the truck. That journey led me on sort of a self-exploration. It led me to think, what do consumers really want? What am I really doing here? What is the best outcome, right? Obviously, I learned to make exceptional wine, but I realized that there was a disconnect between what I was doing and the experiments and what sort of the average mainstream consumer was interested in.
Cool. So I'll stop there. But ultimately, he talks to the retailers saying that, I adapted and made a generic California red blend, which is moving like anything these days, and that's how his story, I love the fact that how authentic that was. Me as a buyer listening to this, I'm sold on his passion. I'm sold on his business acumen because the guy says that, okay, I was making something this, but I was disconnected with the consumer. So he also understands the business. So I love this particular example here where, he's really has that storytelling, angle. Now, always, if you just use this in the presentations, you're going to sort of have that consistency in your, whoever distributor partner you're onboarding. What are your differentiators, right? So special ingredient awards, focus on sustainability. You got to find how you are different in your story. So something like this, like now we all will remember about this guy, right? So something there has to be some takeaway in memory happening, when you're telling your story. Focus on the consumer. The story must focus, on the consumer as well. What problems does your product solve? What desires or emotion does it fulfill? How does it fit into their lifestyle, right? So you got to have really this story is for the consumer, by the way. It's not for yourself. So you got to talk to the consumer. Leverage visual storytelling, right? So try to force yourself to use less words and more pictures, videos and visual way of storytelling. So let's go with one, I think maybe the last example of storytelling video here I have, which is from one of the world's best storytelling writer, Felicity Carter, if some of you know if you read Meininger's magazine. So she's been a writer here, and she was also at one of our conference giving a keynote on how to write a good story and pitch to the press. So here's what she had to say.
The story that everybody tells is exactly the same. I've lost count of the number of times I've spoken to producers at Provine or Van Expo or Van Italy, and I say, tell me your story. And they say, well, typically we're a family-owned winery, which is great. Our wines are made in the vineyard, which is great. And we make our wines with passion, which is terrific. You know, wine should be all of those things. But that's the standard narrative that everybody says. And if everybody's got that story, then it's not going to fly. You've got to say something different. So what's the secret to a good story? Now, there's somebody else today who's speaking about storytelling, so I'll leave the nuts and bolts of how to tell a good story to her. But basically, a good story is the stories that you tell one another. If the hail has come down and hurt your crops, that's a story, and if you send that to the British media, they'll print it. If raccoons come and steal your grapes, or if in South Africa baboons come and rustle your grapes, you can get that story into the media. If you have a huge success of some kind, you can do it, but stay away from the story of we're family owned, we make wines in the vineyard, we make wines with passion, not because those are not good things, but because everybody says them.
Cool. So I'll end there. All right, guys. So thank you very much for attending.